Good morning. Good to see you in chapel this morning. Would you stand as we sing, "On Christ I Stand"? My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand, a higher plane than I have found. On Christ the solid rock I stand. When darkness seems to hide its face, I rest on His unchanging grace. In every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand, a higher plane than I have found. On Christ the solid rock I stand. When He shall come with trumpet sound, oh may I then in Him be found, dressed in His righteousness alone, faultless to stand before the throne. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand, a higher plane than I have found. On Christ the solid rock I stand. Good singing, thank you.
Good morning. I was going to say this is Snow Chapel, but this is Missions Chapel. By the way, how many of you do like snow? All right. How many of you are going south of Wisconsin for Thanksgiving? Could my wife and I come with you? I'll bring the Mountain Dew. She'll bring her famous apple pie. Good singing. When I walked in, I thought, oh, we've got fewer chairs. And then I was notified and reminded that volleyball team is gone and likewise our band. But good job in singing. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today, and I do pray for these two groups representing you, first and foremost, then Maranatha. I pray that you give them safety and health. I pray that they would bond together as a group, be able to edify each other and encourage each other. I pray that eternal seed be planted not only in the dispensing of ministry, but in receiving. Lord, I pray therefore the Lord of the harvest, that in the process of scheduling Missions Chapel, it wouldn't be an event, but rather a time to look and search, to be reminded, to be convicted, to be encouraged. And I pray from this group that you would send forth laborers into the harvest field. God, I pray that every one of us would be willing to say, should I go? And where? And I pray that we'd allow you to do business with us. And we ask this in your name. Amen. You may be seated. Today we have some recruiters on campus, and I'm assuming that their displays are set up in the back, and that is Brother Thad Berry with Anchorage Christian Camp, and then Brother Joe Willis with Foundations Baptist Fellowship International. One looking for help in camp, one looking for help in the military. Both valid ministries, both would add great experience to your spiritual portfolio. We also want to share something about missions trip. The nurses are going to update us with what they did this past year. But also we want to notify you that we are still looking for individuals to be who are interested in going on the Dominican Republic trip. That's mid-May, late May. And if you're interested in that one, it is more of a general trip. You can email me with your name and phone number, driver's license number, and social security number. I want to do some Christmas shopping during Thanksgiving. The nurses headed off to Kosovo. That's an interesting one. And then some soccer. Some of the soccer team are going to be headed to Kyrgyzstan. Wow, that'd be quite an event. And then the girls' volleyball team to Grand Cayman Island to be a part of a ministry where some of our graduates are there ministering even now. But I would encourage you to do that, be a part of that ministry. Just allow yourself to stretch and be blessed in that. Nurses will come after we are done with music. Let's have another song.
We're going to sing the little chorus, Walk Worthy of the Lord. We'll sing it through 2 times, and then Julia and Caitlin will come sing for us. Walk worthy of the Lord. Come, give your heart to Christ. Live always bearing fruit for Him. Live strengthened by His might. Walk worthy of the Lord. Power to His name. Give Him glory, give Him honor. Walk worthy of the Lord. Walk worthy of the Lord. Come, give your heart to Christ. Live, always bearing fruit for Him. Live, strengthened by His might. Walk worthy of the Lord. All power to His name. Give Him glory, give Him honor. Walk worthy of the Lord. Thank you so much.
What a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, oh leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, oh leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh, how sweet to walk in this pilgrim way, leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh, how bright the path grows from day to day, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, oh leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, What have I to dread? What have I to fear? Leaning on the everlasting arms, I have blessed peace with my Lord so near, leaning on the everlasting arms, leaning, oh leaning, safe and secure from all alarms, leaning, oh leaning on the everlasting, leaning on the everlasting, leaning on the everlasting, leaning on the everlasting arms.
Mirman Jess. That means good morning in Albanian. I am Miss Schmeckel. I am not the Miss Schmeckel that teaches history that some of you have. I am the Miss Schmeckel that teaches in the nursing department. But on this snowy morning, I think we could all do with going back a little bit in history to May when it was slightly warmer and think about what you were doing in the middle of May. Maybe you were just graduating from high school and getting ready to come to Maranatha. Or maybe you were finishing your first year of college, you were heading off to camp, you were looking for a job. Or maybe you were some of the people that showed up early on a Saturday morning to pray for Team Albania as we went starting Saturday and we arrived on a Sunday. And we went about 5,000 miles away. So while you guys were planning for a summer, we were traveling many time zones away. And what we want to share with you guys this morning is what God did during that week that we were there and in the months since then. And so we're going to start off with talking about our travel and how we actually got there. So Nita, tell us about travel.
I'm Nita Haggard. Psalm 16:9 says, "A man's heart deviseth his way, but the Lord directeth his steps." We all come up with our own plans for how to do things, but God knows the big picture. God worked in many ways in this trip, ways that we recognized then, and some ways that we didn't recognize till much later. While preparing for this trip, we saw God provide the funds for everyone in an astoundingly short amount of time, and work in all the many other little details like getting passports. We took Maranatha's bus down to O'Hare and flew to Frankfurt, Germany, and from there to the capital of Albania, Tirana. We then met the rest of the team and rode our bus down to the city we stayed in, Vlora. Our entire trip there took about 25 hours, but we lost 7 hours. So we got there Sunday afternoon instead of in the morning. One amazing blessing and my favorite memory during this trip was related to some COVID tests that Germany required. Several of us in the ORH group that left from O'Hare were still waiting for our test results when our plane was supposed to start boarding. The boarding got delayed several times, and during that time, a few people got their results back. A few of us were still waiting for the results when it was our turn to start boarding. But the officials didn't ask anyone about the results then, or when we got to Frankfurt. The next Saturday, we rode the bus back to Tirana and spent part of the day sightseeing and had our only eventful bus ride, and stayed in the hotel in Tirana until 2 a.m. when we left for the airport. We flew back through Vienna and then back to O'Hare, and finally took Maranatha's bus back to campus. Our trip back took 27 hours because we had a longer layover in Vienna, which many of the team spent sleeping. And we gained 7 hours, so we got back at 5 p.m. instead of midnight. God was also working in ways that we couldn't see at that time. In the past years, the seniors have taken their trip in October instead of in May like we did. But God knew that doing the trip in May would be better for a few reasons. One reason is that the trip that we would have gone on this fall was canceled the week before they would have left due to additional last-minute paperwork that was required by the country. God truly directs our steps.
Hi, my name is Mrs. Kim Reed, and I'm a nursing faculty. I've known the Fiocchis before they were missionaries. As a member of Calvary Baptist Church, I remember sending them off in 1998. So they've been missionaries for 25 years to the country of Albania. And Albania is a growing third world country, and they've lived under communism for 40 years or more. And most of them identify as Muslims, although they are not practicing. So this was a great outreach. What I really appreciate about the Fiocchis is, number one, they have a son who's here currently in Watertown, and he's married to one of our MBU staff members, Pam. So most of you probably know her. And they have another son who lives in Wisconsin, but they also have a daughter who's a senior in high school, and she plans to come to Maranatha in the fall, and her name is Sophia. So when she comes next year, be sure to welcome her. And she'll be, very foreign to American ways because she's lived in Albania her whole life. I really appreciate the Fiocchis because of their servant leadership. We talk about this at Maranatha, and what's really special is the pastors that are there. There were two missionary pastors, Mr. Manley and Pastor King. Both of them, they were serving God, helping out with this medical missions trip, but they also ministered to us and encouraged us with their families, and the Fiocchis did the same thing. Pastor Mike Fiocchi, he worked really hard to get us good accommodations. I mean, it was like a resort, honestly. It was the best missions trip I could have ever gone to. And the food was amazing. We didn't have to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches all the time. So it was just quite the experience. The verse that I want to leave with you is at Mark 10:45. For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and give his life as a ransom for many.
So part of our team that we joined was Operation Renewed Hope. And there were about 48 of us all together as a team, so it was a very large team. And we joined with them for 4 days of medical clinic. And we usually started medical clinic with triage. So Liz, tell us about that.
Yes, my name is Elizabeth Delaney, and I had the privilege of working in triage on 2 separate days of our clinic. So practically when the people come into the clinic, they go through registration and then they come immediately to triage. And our job in triage is to do all of their vital signs assessment. So we are assessing blood pressure, pulse, respirations, all the basic. So in that, when they go to registration, they say what doctors they plan on seeing that day. But let's say, for instance, we had a lot of patients coming in who, when we would check their blood pressure, when it was well over 200, then we would say, you need to go and see our physicians to get some blood pressure medications. So that was kind of our way of stepping in and saying, if they're only coming to see the eye doctor, but are obviously having some heart issues, we could get them more help than they thought they needed. One of my favorite things about triage is I got to interact with almost every patient we saw in the clinic. And although I can't speak the language, a lot of the people assumed I could because I look just like the Albanians, apparently. So I would say good morning in Albanian, and they would just go completely on. I was like, oh, no, I don't speak the language. So it was just a really special opportunity to get to know each of the different people a little bit different. And then after we finished with them in triage and taking all their vital signs, we would guide them over to crowd control.
So my name is Gabrielle Torres, and I'll be talking to you all about crowd control. So after triage, everybody was brought over to a waiting area where they sat down in chairs like that, and they just waited. And they waited until they saw the doctors. And so everybody had to come and sit and wait. And I was trying to think about like the importance of crowd control, and if there wasn't good crowd control, then the whole clinic area would become chaos and people would be everywhere doing whatever they wanted. And so I really liked crowd control. I did it for one afternoon, and I'm a people watcher, and so I enjoyed just standing there and seeing everybody that came through the clinic, and I got to watch how they interacted with each other. I got to learn some of the language from them while we had hours to wait. And it was really neat to just see a different culture in that way. But something that I learned from crowd control was that God gives us periods of waiting in our life, and all of us need to wait at some point in our life, but it's for our own good. All of the people that came through the clinic, they needed medical help, and they needed an answer from a doctor. They needed the American nurses to help them. And so we were able to help them in that way, but they had to wait before they got the help. And so that was something that God has been challenging me about different reactions to waiting, because as I stood there watching all the people in crowd control, I saw some people that were very pleasant and they were cooperative and they waited their turn and they moved a seat over every 30 minutes when they were told to. And then other people became very impatient and they were very upset that they had to wait for hours to see the doctor. And some of them got angry and they left. And other people decided to take it into their own hands, and they tried to cut in line, and they tried to save spots for other people in line, and they wanted to do it their way. And so it was a challenge to me to think about, how do I react during these waiting periods in my life? Will I be pleasant? Will I be cooperative and wait for God and his answer, or will I try to take things into my own hands? And so I'm very thankful for the Albania trip, and I'm thankful that I got to help in crowd control.
Part of crowd control would direct people to the medical area, which were where all of our doctors were. So Megan, tell us about that.
Hi, my name is Megan, and God used this trip in so many ways in my own heart, and it's just a blast, really. It was so much fun. And so in the medical area, after they would go through triage, and depending on what they indicated on their registration form, they would filter into the medical area. And on this trip, we had one dentist, an eye doctor, several just basic medical doctors, a surgeon, and then an OB/GYN, which is a women's health doctor. One highlight for me was getting to work with the OB doctor. It was such a cool experience to get to see her heart for the young women of Albania. And it was just such a cool experience to learn from her, and then also just be a part of that, get to help her out in that area. So that was really fun. And then also all the other medical, we all at some point filtered through each of the different stations of the medical doctors, so that was a really cool experience. Just in general, a really big blessing that I found from this trip was getting to be with so many healthcare professionals that shared my values and were Christians. And if you know anything about the healthcare arena, that is very rare, and it's a very secular world. And so that was just a really cool experience, getting to work with so many of them that were Christians, and that was just a huge blessing to my heart. So
I think we could all say we all know how to clean ears now. That was one of the main things that we saw, and then you also mentioned high blood pressure. And the people of Albania tend to carry a lot, they have a lot of stress in life, and we see that in their blood pressure. And it just gave us a heart to want to love on these people and show them the love of God. And that's part of why we go over there, is not just to give them medical care, but also to open their eyes to the love of Christ. And so all of these areas that got them to seeing a doctor, we just continued on, and we loved on them so that they could eventually hear the gospel. So another area was the dental clinic.
Hi, my name is Braden, and I got to work in the dental area clinic on the first day. Dental is one of the three areas of clinic that we had doctors in that we directed patients to. During the rural days in the Roma clinic, the first 2 days of clinic, we saw a lot of people who just needed fluoride treatments. We were at a school location there, and we were able to get all the kids and the staff fluoride treatments on that first day, and they wouldn't have had access to that care otherwise. We also able to pass out a lot of supplies like toothbrushes and toothpaste, things that those people really didn't have, and it can really go a long way in helping keep their teeth healthy. Once we moved into the city, we kind of did more of the same type of thing. We had a portable x-ray machine with us as well, and Dr. Gibson was able to show a couple of us how to take the x-rays and kind of look for some of those deeper things that they could look to correct. While we were in the city clinic, we were also able to get all the interpreters through and get them a lot of cleanings and get them fluoride treatments as well. Things that they don't have as much access to as we have over here. And that was a real big blessing to them because a lot of them didn't necessarily have that care on a normal basis. One of the dentists that we were with was a local dentist, Dr. Gibson. He's actually sitting right over there. So if you can wave for us. Dr. Gibson went with us. He's gone on many, many ORH trips and continues to do that.
Yes.
And then, interestingly, if you go back one, can you go back one slide?
Yes.
Standing next to Dr. Gibson is Dr. Lydia. She is from Honduras. She's a dentist in Honduras and actually learned about ORH when they went to Honduras to do a missions trip. And she was part of the ministry that they went to support. And while she was there, she was like, oh, I'm a dentist, by the way. So they're like, great, come with us next time. So she hooked up with the team when we got to Germany, I think, on the way over, and then ministered with us in Albania, and then went back to Honduras. So that was a really cool connection. The dental team was really fun to work with. They really invested in the lives of the students that they had and in the patients that they saw. Sophia, actually, the Fiocchi's daughter, was able to be with the dental clinic for a long time, and they kind of showed her how to do some things, and she's considering going into that field of study. And then a local dental school had a lot of hygienist students, so they asked if they could come bring their hygienist students and learn from the doctors that were there. So they got to minister to that area as well, something that was pretty unique to just the dental area. So overall, I really enjoyed my time in the dental area. It was great to see the local doctor and then how God connected Dr. Lydia and just minister to the lives of the people in Albania.
She did speak English, so we didn't have to translate from Spanish to English to Albanian, so just to be clear.
Hello, my name is Taylor Ellis. I'm going to be talking about the Vision Clinic. I got to work in this area on the first day of clinic in Riesli. It was one of the most popular stations that the patients wanted to choose. It was usually the last station to close up at the end of the day. So in the Vision Clinic, there were two different stations. The patients would first go and get their eyes measured by an autorefractor. It just measured the curvature of their eyes, and then it gave a number that was equivalent to a prescription. And the eye doctor would then take that number over at his station and be able to fit them with the right kind of glasses that they needed. Yes, that little boy was so cute. There were hundreds of different glasses to choose from, boxes and boxes, and so sometimes this was a very tedious process, just trying to find the right fit, and sometimes they were wanting a certain style or design. But then also the eye doctor would perform an eye health assessment just to check for different things, and so that was also really neat. It was a very humbling experience for me, just the amount of time that these people waited in line to get their eyes checked. We kind of take it for granted. We have eye doctors, many of us have multiple pairs of glasses laying around. I know for me, I probably should wear mine more than I do. But they waited in line and they were just so thankful for that gift of improved sight. So that was just really humbling and definitely something to thank God for. And then just a blessing that I got from this trip was just the camaraderie with my classmates and just how much closer we were able to grow. And one of my favorite memories was we were just sitting outside of the hotel on the patio. Braden was giving, I'm sure, an amazing devotional. And these three were sitting on a fountain, and it abruptly turned on and they all jumped up at the same time. And we were all laughing. And I just remember it was just a really fun time of camaraderie, so this trip was definitely a blessing to me in that sense.
Hi, my name is Kate Thompson. One of my favorite clinic days that I had was the day I was in the pharmacy, which is probably shocking to Miss Stilly, since she knew how so much I love farm. But this was just an amazing experience. I got to see everybody that came to clinic because everybody had to go through pharmacy at some point. And Laura was the pharmacist nurse that was running it, and she was amazing. She was so much fun, and I just loved being able to get to know her. So how pharmacy worked is everyone came to, the day I was in pharmacy, it was held in a cafe across from the school. And so they came and they gave us their prescription and their paper, and we would look at the prescription and we would have to fill it. So I'd have to look at the medications, which if you've ever tried to read doctors' handwriting, is a struggle. But we figured it out, and a lot of people just came through for like vitamins and Tylenol, which is like their wellness packet. But it was just a really fun experience to see everybody and just be able to meet those needs physically, and just, it's connected to the gospel, so I got to see a little bit of that too, which is very encouraging to me. But the people were just so sweet, and again, like they wait like all day if they have to, and they're just so thankful for everything we can give them. And we actually partnered with a local pharmacist in the area, so she came with her boyfriend every day, and they gave us any medications that we needed, which was great for the group because we could buy medications as we used them, and we didn't have to worry about just buying a ton of medications and not knowing how much to use. We could go day by day, which was really helpful. And the pharmacist that we paired up with she was so sweet, and she was like talking to us and her boyfriend, and they were so fun to like talk to, and she would actually translate for us, so as soon as the people got their medications, she would talk to them about it and like how to use it, what's it for. And by the end of the day, her boyfriend was actually jumping in and helping, and he was like so ready to be involved, which was really neat to see. But I really enjoyed this trip overall. Like, it was just such a blessing to me, and God really worked in my life throughout that day.
Okay, so my name is Veronica Foltz, and I'm just going to be talking a little bit about the last section of clinical for our clinical day, and that was the gospel outreach section. So like Kate mentioned, this was paired with the pharmacy section, and it was actually on all the days we did clinic on a separate location from the rest of clinic. So we were able to get set up our whole clinic on school grounds locations for all 4 days, but because of just the rules of the government there in Albania, we weren't allowed to present the gospel on government land. So we brought the pharmacy and the outreach sections, usually across the street, to a separate location. The rest of the clinic, everything that everyone there's already mentioned, that was run by our whole group from ORH. But actually the outreach section was run by the local missionaries, and also several local church pastors and just young guys from their churches, either from the city we were in, Vlor, or up from the capital of Tirana. So it was just really cool. The one day I was in pharmacy, I was able to kind of see what was going on in the outreach section, and just to see how they just interacted with the patients, and as the patients were waiting for their prescriptions, they would pull them into a separate room and share the gospel with them. And it was just especially neat to see just the missionaries, especially their heart for really making these new contacts with people that they might not have been able to reach otherwise. Just how excited they were to be able to maybe go into their villages and communities after we were gone, and just kind of rekindle those connections that they'd made during clinic. So during the week of clinic, it was mostly just seed planting, honestly, because a lot of the Albanians still are very unfamiliar with the gospel, being under communism for so long, and most of them are kind of just agnostic, one of the pastors was saying. But during clinic, there was one woman who they reported had accepted Christ. But something that was just extra encouraging to me, because we were going there for such a short time, it's hard to make those connections with the people and share the gospel and then just leave. But it was neat to know that all of these pastors and all the members of these churches were there to continue that work after we were gone. So we were even receiving emails through ORH from the local missionaries and pastors saying up to a month later they were still getting 8 to 10 visitors each week in their services, people who had come to clinic and heard of the churches through that. So that was just encouraging to know that even though we left, that work is still being carried on there.
And God is still at work. We saw over 1,000 people, and like Veronica said, we know of one person who got saved, but the work is still going on. At the end of our clinic day, we had amazing food, and Tessa's going to tell us a little bit about that and the language, since we couldn't really speak English over there.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Tessa. We got a little bit of a crash course in how to talk to the Albanians. And so Mirëmëngjes is good morning. And then you can say Chikemi, which is hi. Two very important ones are po, which is yes, and yo, which is no. And then another one I used frequently was like mir, which is good, and faleminderit, which is thank you. And so it was interesting because sometimes like you would say like Mirëmëngjes, and then they just start speaking in Albanian, and you go, oh, English. But our translators were lifesavers. They did so much work. We had, I believe, 30 translators, and I became friends with some of them. They were just amazing. But then some of the food we had was really great. I loved breakfast. Breakfast was my favorite. There was like always fresh eggs and bacon and like these croissants, and the honey was amazing. And their coffee is like richer and smoother, and you only need 1 cup. And oftentimes after clinic, we had the opportunity to go and get gelato, which was awesome. We would just like walk down to one of the places and like get gelato, and it was really good. They had all these different flavors, and I think we went like 2 or 3 times. And then the food on the planes were also really good. I got like a Frankfurter in Frankfurt, and we got like lasagna on the planes. But some of the interesting things, for lunch we always had like a sandwich and chips, but the chips were like these Cheeto Puffs, but they were like peanut butter or chicken flavored or like pizza flavored. So they weren't like Cheeto Puffs, but they were still all right, you know, like sustenance. But and then at the end of the trip, they brought in like a cake that said faleminderit for us like staying at the hotel, and then they sang to us in like their native, like one of their cultural songs. And it was just really great to be a blessing to them because, you know, it was a new hotel and we were providing service for them to do. But one of my favorite memories from Albania was I was in the clinic and I was working with Dr. Dersh, and there was a lady who needed to run home and grab her medications because it was really important, that information that we needed to know, like what she was taking. And so we saved her spot for her, and like you saw the lines of people. It would take like sometimes 8 hours for them to come and see us. So we saved her spot, and in the little village of Rieseli, there was like stone walls with like flowers all over. So she picked a bouquet of flowers for us and gave it to us when she came back. So it was really sweet.
The Albanians are very hospitable and made us feel so welcome, like a lot of you have all said. And during that week, God also just showed us his love. As much as we were trying to love the Albanians, he gave us amazing accommodations, wonderful fellowship. It was just so much fun to serve together, to get to know the missionaries, and then also just enjoy God's creation. Albania is a beautiful country, and our hotel was close to a beach that we were able to walk along. It was in a city, and we were able to experience gelato, yes, a lot. And but what struck me was the fact of how sometimes it can look like a European city, modern European city, and then you walk past an open-air fruit market, and then you take just a 10-minute bus ride, and you are in a rural area, and there's mule-drawn carriages, and there's sheep herders, and your clinic is sitting next to an olive grove. And then you have clinic the next day, and it is in a beautiful city, and everything is pristine. And just seeing how much communism has affected that country, of how sometimes very poor it is, and then how rich it can look at times. And we learned how that history has affected the people and how much they don't understand love. And when they're under that communism for so long, they didn't know how to accept our love, and they didn't understand what a relationship with God was. And so being there just for that week, and it wasn't anything great that we did. We took the skills that we know, and we were able to just share God's love through those and help the missionaries be able to continue that work and teach these people what God's love is. But as much as we poured out, we feel like we were poured into by the missionaries and by the people of Albania. These are the choir that came and sang to us on our last night, and it's very interesting. Dr. Ledgerwood, it would be interesting to have a choir like that. And some of their history as well. We were able to do a little bit of sightseeing, see an old castle and an open-air market, and just experience some of the culture and understand where these people are coming from. It was such a blessing. And being able to then come back to the United States and have that same spirit. We went for the people. We didn't go for the culture. And understanding that it's the people that need the love. And when we come back here, it's not that the missions trip is over. It is the fact that we continue to share that love of Christ. It's with our roommates, it's with our classmates, it's for us, it's with our patients at clinical. And just that concept of God's love meets us here, God's love meets us in Albania. And I encourage all of you, as I'm sure that these students would, come on a missions trip and experience that love that God can not only show to you, but also through you if you're willing to share that love. And I thank you so much for praying for all of us. And this upcoming May, the next class is going to be taking their mission trip as well. But just be in prayer as to how God would use you and sharing his love today to someone else, and not just wait until we're on a mission field to share that love. And so we want to just say, as you say in Albanian, thank you, faleminderit, and thank you for listening, thank you for praying for us, and I just wish you all a wonderful day. You are dismissed.